AITA for refusing to build the pyramids. Ancient Egypt, 2500 BC. If Reddit existed in ancient Egypt, this is the post that would have changed everything. A story of family, duty, and the price of saying no to a god. Welcome to If Reddit Existed Back Then, where we explore the daily lives, moral dilemmas, and impossible choices of people who lived thousands of years ago. If you enjoy these historical deep dives, hit that subscribe button because we're traveling through time every single week. Today we're going to ancient Egypt, 2500 years before Christ, where one man's decision to refuse the pharaoh's command sparked a debate that still echoes through history. Let's read his post. Amithia's Hole, posted by user Sandworker of Thebes in the year 2500 BC. Title: Am I the asshole for refusing to work on the Great Pyramid after my brother died building it? My name's Kenti. I'm 28 years old, and I've worked as a stonehauler in Thebes my entire adult life. For the past 3 years, my brother Ahamos and I have been part of the workforce building what they're calling the greatest structure ever conceived by man, the Pyramid of Khufu. They say it will stand forever, that it will house the pharaoh's soul for eternity and connect our world to the realm of the gods. Every stone placed is supposed to be an act of devotion, every day of labor, a prayer. But my brother is dead, and I don't think the gods heard his prayers when the rope snapped. Let me explain how we got here. 3 years ago, the royal decree came to our village. Every able-bodied man between the ages of 18 and 40 was to report to the construction site at Giza. It wasn't optional. The pharaoh, blessed be his name, needed workers. Tens of thousands of them. At first, my brother and I were excited. We'd heard stories about the massive project, the engineering miracle, the way the stone blocks were so perfectly cut they didn't need mortar. They said workers were fed 3 meals a day, given beer rations, and housed in proper barracks for farmers and laborers like us. It sounded like an opportunity. Our father blessed us before we left. He said, "You will build something that outlives empires. Your children's children will point to those stones and say, 'My ancestors made that.'" We believed him. The first year wasn't terrible. The work was backbreaking. Yes, we hauled limestone blocks from dawn until the sun god Ra began his descent. Each block weighed as much as 30 men. We pulled them on wooden sledges. 50 of us per block, our feet digging into sand as overseers shouted timing chants. The limestone came from quarries upriver, massive pieces of stone, each one cut with copper, tools, and wooden mallets by men who spent their entire lives learning the craft. The blocks would arrive by boat during the flood season, when the Nile swelled and allowed heavy barges to navigate closer to the construction site. Our job was simple in theory. Move the stones from the river docks to the base of the pyramid, then haul them up the enormous ramp that spiraled around the structure like a stone serpent climbing toward the heavens. In practice, it was hell. The wooden sledges would dig into the sand. The ropes would cut into our shoulders until our skin was raw and bleeding. The overseers would pour water on the sand to make it slicker, which helped. But on hot days, the moisture would evaporate within minutes, and we'd be back to dragging dead weight through loose desert. Each team of 50 men was responsible for 1 block per day. If you failed to meet your quota, your entire team lost. Rations. So we pushed through pain, through heat, exhaustion, through injuries that should have sent us to the physicians but didn't because we couldn't afford to be seen as weak. But we were young, strong, and we had each other. Amos always made me laugh. Even when our hands bled and our backs screamed, he'd lean over and whisper, "At least we're not cleaning the pharaoh's chamber pot." It was a stupid joke, but it kept us going. The second year, things got harder. The pharaoh wanted the pyramid completed within his lifetime, and every week the quotas increased. More blocks, faster hauling, longer hours. Men started getting injured. A sledge would tip, a rope would fray, someone would slip on the ramp and fall 30 feet onto stone. The priest would come, say prayers, tell us the gods were testing our devotion. Then they'd carry the body away and bring in a replacement worker by the next. Morning! We weren't people anymore. We were parts of a machine. Amos started coughing around month 16. At first, I thought it was just dust from the quarry. Everyone coughed, but his got worse. Deep, wet, rattling. At night, he'd wake up gasping, clutching his chest. I begged him to see the physician. He refused. He said if the overseers thought he was weak, they'd reassign him to the quarry pits, and nobody came back from the pits. So he kept working, kept pulling, kept bleeding. Then, 3 months ago, it happened. We were hauling a massive block up the exterior ramp, the one that spirals around the pyramid. 50 men on ropes. The overseers were pushing us to move faster because a sandstorm was coming, and they wanted the block placed before nightfall. The ramp itself was a marvel of engineering, wide enough for 2 teams to pass each other, built from mud brick and rubble, reinforced with wooden beams. It rose at a gentle angle, wrapping around the pyramid like a ribbon, but gentle is relative when you're pulling several tons of limestone upward in 100-degree heat. Amos was on the front left rope. I was 2 rows behind him. I remember everything about that moment. The way the sun sat low on the horizon, painting the desert orange and gold. The way sweat stung my eyes. The rhythmic chant of the overseer calling out the pulling. Cadence, heave, hold, heave, hold. The ramp was slick with sand. The block was heavier than usual, one of the massive casing stones meant for the pyramid's outer surface. These stones were special, cut from fine white limestone from Tura, polished to a mirror shine. They were the pharaoh's pride, the face of his eternal monument, and the rope we'd been using for weeks, was fraying. I'd noticed it that morning. I'd pointed it out to the rope. Master, a gruff man named Hori, he'd waved me off, said we'd replace it tomorrow, that it had 1 more haul left in it. He was wrong. I saw it snap before I heard it. The sound was like a tree branch breaking, a sharp crack that cut through the chanting and the grunting and the scraping of wood on stone, then screaming, then the sickening thud of stone meeting bone. The block rolled backward and crushed 4 men instantly. Amos was one of them. Time seemed to stop. I watched the stone roll in slow motion, watched my brother's body disappear beneath tons of limestone, watched the other men scatter like birds from a cat, watched the rope whip through the air, its frayed end trailing like a serpent's tongue. Then time snapped back and I was running. I ran to him. His chest was caved in. Blood poured from his mouth, dark and thick, mixing with the sand beneath him. His eyes were still open, staring up at the sky like he was trying to see the gods he'd been promised. His lips moved. He was trying to say something. I leaned close, pressed my ear to his mouth, and heard him whisper, "Tell father." I tried. Then his breath stopped. I held his hand until it went cold, until the warmth left his fingers and the desert wind began to dry the blood on his lips. The overseers didn't stop work. They pulled the bodies aside, re-rigged the ropes, and told the rest of us to keep pulling. By sunset, the block was in place. Nobody said a prayer for my brother after the funeral rites, which I paid for myself because the project doesn't cover death expenses. I went back to my barracks. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that rope snapping. I heard his bones breaking. The next morning, I didn't report to the ramp. The overseer came to find me. He was a man named Seneb, stern but not cruel. He asked why I wasn't working. I told him, "My brother died pulling your stones. I'm done." He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "I understand your grief, Kenti, but the work must continue. The pharaoh's soul depends on it." I said, "The pharaoh has 1,000 souls pulling his stones. He won't miss mine." Seneb's face hardened. "You swore an oath to the crown. To abandon your duty is to spit on the gods themselves," I said. "The gods took my brother. I owe them nothing." That's when everything changed. Word spread fast. By midday, everyone in the barracks knew that Kenti, the stone hauler from Thebes, had refused to work. Some men looked at me with pity, others with disgust. One of the older workers, a man named Kaimwaset, came to me that night. He sat beside me and said, "I lost my son here 2 years ago, fell from the scaffolding. I wanted to leave too." I asked him why he stayed. He said, "Because if I leave, his death means nothing. But if I stay and finish this pyramid, then he's part of something eternal. His sacrifice meant something." I looked at him and said, "I'd rather have my brother alive than eternal." He didn't respond, just walked away. The next day, the head overseer summoned me. His name was Meraruka, and he was known for being ruthless. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He said, "You have 2 choices, Kenti. Return to work or face punishment for breaking your oath to the pharaoh." I asked what the punishment was. He smiled. "We'll take your family's land, your father's farm. Everything your bloodline owns will belong to the crown. I felt my stomach drop. My father was old. That farm was all he had. Without it, he'd starve, I said. You'd punish my father for my decision. Meraruka shrugged. Your family benefits from the pharaoh's protection if you refuse to serve. That protection ends. It was extortion, plain and simple. But what could I do? I went back to my barracks and stared at the ceiling all night. I thought about my brother's crushed chest. I thought about my father's wrinkled hands working soil. I thought about the pyramid, gleaming white in the sun, a monument to a man who would never know my brother's name. And I made my decision. The next morning, I walked up to Meraruka and said, I'll work, but not on the pyramid. He raised an eyebrow. Explain, I said. I'll haul stone for the workers' village. I'll build houses, repair tools, dig wells, anything that helps the men who are building your pyramid, but I will not touch another block meant for that tomb. Meraruka stared at me. For a moment, I thought he'd have me beaten. Then he laughed. A cold, sharp laugh. He said, Fine, you'll work the supply chain, but you'll still be serving the project. Kenti, every nail you hammer, every bucket you fill, it all goes toward completing the pharaoh's eternal resting place. I nodded. I know, but at least I won't be the one placing the stones. So that's where I am now. I work in the supply camp, far from the pyramid itself. I build barracks, repair sledges, distribute rations. Technically, I'm still part of the project, but I haven't touched a pyramid stone in 3 months. Some workers respect my decision. They say I found a way to honor my brother and still fulfill my duty. Others call me a coward. They say I took the easy way out, that I'm hiding behind grief to avoid hard work. My father sent me a letter last week. He said he's proud of me for standing up for my brother's memory. But he also said, Be careful, my son. The pharaoh's reach is long, and his memory is longer. I don't know if I made the right choice. I don't know if my brother would be proud or ashamed. All I know is that I can't pull another stone without seeing his face. So, am I the asshole? Did I dishonor my brother by refusing to finish what he started? Or did I dishonor him by agreeing to keep working at all? Let's check the comments from ancient Egyptians who weighed in on his dilemma. Top comment from user Priest of Thoth. Not the asshole. The gods do not demand blind devotion. They demand conscious sacrifice. You chose to serve without sacrificing your soul. Your brother would understand. Reply from Sandworker of Thebes. Thank you. That means more than you know. Comment from user Overseer of Giza. You are the asshole. You swore an oath. Your personal grief doesn't excuse you from duty. If everyone who lost to someone quit, the pyramid would never be finished. Grow up. Reply from Sandworker of Thebes. Easy to say when it's not your brother crushed under stone. Reply from Overseer of Giza. I lost my father building the step pyramid of Djoser. I finished his section myself. That's what duty means. Comment from user Widow Ofa Worker. My husband died building the mortuary temple. I understand your pain, but he believed in the work. He believed his labor would echo through eternity. You staying in the project, even in a different role, is still honoring that belief, not the asshole. Reply from Sandworker of Thebes. Did you ever wonder if maybe he just told himself that to make the pain worth something? What if he would have rather just lived? Comment from user Stonecutter Mankaur. Asshole, you took the coward's path. You get to tell yourself you're still helping while avoiding the real work. Meanwhile, the rest of us pull your weight. If you really wanted to honor your brother, you'd finish his work. Reply from Sandworker of Thebes. His work was dying. I'm not interested in finishing that. Comment from user Farmer from Memphis. Not the asshole, but you're playing a dangerous game. The pharaoh doesn't forget insults, even small ones. Be careful, brother. Comment from user Hebrews. Lave Joseph. Not the asshole. I was forced into labor here after being sold by my own family. At least you had a choice. Use it. Comment from user Physician of Thebes. I've treated hundreds of injuries. From this project, crushed limbs, broken backs, lung disease from stone dust. The official records say these men died serving the gods, but I see their faces. They died afraid. You're not an asshole for wanting to live. You're human. Comment from user Rope Weaver Quit. I make the ropes you pull with. I replace them when they fray. That rope that killed your brother, I flagged it for replacement 2 weeks before the accident. The overseer said it could last another month. I tried. I'm sorry. Reply from Sandworker of Thebes. It's not your fault. The gods know it's not your fault. Comment from user Architect Imhotep. Shu, Ghost. You're all fools. The pyramid is greater than any individual life. When it stands complete, it will be a gateway between earth and the heavens. Your brother's sacrifice feeds that gateway. His death was not in vain, but your cowardice dishonors him. Reply from Sandworker of Thebes. Architects don't pull stones. You draw lines in sand, and we bleed to make them real. Don't talk to me about sacrifice. Here's where the story takes a dark turn. 3 weeks after this post was made, another update appeared from the same user. Update from Sandworker of Thebes. I need to tell you what happened. I don't know if anyone will believe me, but I have to write it down before I forget. Before they make me forget. Last night, I was working late in the supply tent, repairing rope for the hauling crews. It was past midnight. Everyone else had gone to sleep. I heard footsteps outside, heavy, deliberate. Then the tent flap opened, and Mereruka walked in. He wasn't alone. 2 priests were with him, the kind with shaved heads and gold amulets, the kind who only show up when someone's about to disappear. Mereruka said, Kenti, we need to talk about your brother. I froze, I said. What about him? He smiled. We need you to come with us. There's something you need to see. I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me to run, but refusing a head overseer and 2 priests, that's a death sentence. So I followed. They led me to the pyramid, not the base where the workers gathered. Higher, to a section still under construction, where the inner chambers were being sealed. We walked through passages I'd never seen before, narrow corridors that seemed to breathe with the weight of stone above them. The torch flames flickered strangely, bending in directions where there was no wind. The air grew colder with each step, despite the desert heat outside. The walls were smooth, impossibly smooth, carved by master masons whose skill bordered on the supernatural. In some places I could see hieroglyphs, sacred texts meant to guide the pharaoh's soul through the underworld. In other places, the stone was blank, waiting. One of the priests handed me a torch. He said, your brother's name has been recorded, but not in the way you think. They took me inside a chamber I can only describe as wrong. The geometry didn't make sense. The walls seemed to curve inward and outward at the same time. The ceiling was lost in shadow despite my torch. And the sound, gods, the sound, a low hum, like thousands of voices, chanting just below the threshold of hearing. The air was thick, cold, wrong. The walls were covered in hieroglyphs, thousands of them, carved deep into the limestone. But these weren't the clean, precise carvings of trained scribes. These were desperate, jagged. Some looked like they'd been scratched in by fingernails. And in the flickering torchlight, I saw something that made my blood stop. Names. Hundreds of names. Thousands, carved into the walls in tiny, cramped script, and I recognized some of them. Kamudi, who'd fallen from scaffolding 6 months ago. Jehuti, who'd been crushed by a cart. Senusret, who'd simply vanished one night. Workers who had died. Workers who had disappeared. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that some of the names were moving. The carved letters seemed to pulse, to shift, to breathe with a rhythm that matched my own heartbeat. The priest whispered, every man who gives his life to this pyramid is honored. His name is written in stone. His soul is bound to the pharaoh's journey. I said, you're telling me my brother's name is in here? He nodded, among many others. Then Mereruka stepped forward. He said, you refuse to finish his work, Kenti, but the gods are merciful. They'll let you take his place. Before I could react, the priests grabbed me. They pressed my hand against the wall, and I felt something cold, something alive, pulse beneath the stone. The priest chanted something in old tongue. The wall started to hum, and then I saw it, my brother's name, carved right in front of me, fresh, still bleeding red ochre. I screamed. I tried to pull away, but the stone held me. Mereruka leaned close and whispered, you wanted to honor him? Now you will, forever. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was back. In my tent, morning light was streaming through the flap. My hand was covered in limestone dust, and my fingers ached like I'd been carving all night. But I don't remember carving anything. I went back to work like nothing happened. But I can't stop thinking about that wall, about my brother's name glowing in the dark. I asked around, quietly, carefully, asked other workers if they'd ever been taken into the pyramid at night. Most looked at me like I was insane. But one old man, a carpenter named Ptahhotep, pulled me aside. He said, you saw the name wall, didn't you? I nodded. He said, my son's name is on that wall. I carved it there myself 20 years ago. I asked him why. He leaned close and whispered, because if we don't write them down, they scream. The stones hold the dead. Boy, every block you place, every chamber you seal, it's not just architecture, it's a prison. And the prisoners need names, or they go mad. I asked him if his son was really dead. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Does it matter? His name is in the stone now. That's all the pharaoh requires. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my brother's name carved into that wall, saw the letters bleeding, saw hands reaching out from inside the stone, and every night I hear his voice, calling me, telling me to come back. It's not his voice exactly. It's like an echo of his voice, filtered through layers of limestone and time. It says my name over and over. Kenti, Kenti, come back. Finish what I started, Kenti. Last night I woke up and found myself standing outside the pyramid. I don't remember walking there. I was barefoot, my feet bloody from the desert rocks. The moon was full, turning the white limestone casing stones into silver fire. I was holding a copper chisel. My hand was cramped around it so tight I couldn't let go. And on the chisel there was blood. My blood. Fresh cuts on my palm where I'd been gripping it. I think I've been carving. I think I've been adding names to that wall in my sleep. I checked my fingers this morning. There's limestone dust under my nails. My fingertips are raw. I think I'm going to go back tonight. I think I need to see his name again. I need to understand what they did to him, what they're doing to me. I'll update you all tomorrow. He never updated again. 6 months later, another user posted in the same subreddit. Username, Newscribe of Giza. The post read, I've been assigned to document worker deaths for the Pyramid Project. I was going through old records today, and I found something strange. There's a name carved into the inner chamber wall that doesn't match any of our official lists. The name is Kenti. But according to the records, he's still alive. He's working in the supply camp. I went to find him, but nobody's seen him in weeks. His tent is empty. His tools are gone. The only thing left is a piece of limestone with 2 names carved into it, Ahmose and Kenti, brothers. I asked the overseer what happened to him. He just smiled and said, he finished his brother's work. This is the story of Kenti, the man who refused to build the pyramids and paid a price far worse than death. A story of loyalty, grief, and the terrible cost of saying no to gods who never forgive. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient Egypt, hit that like button and subscribe for more impossible choices from history. Next time, we're exploring ancient Rome, where a soldier's loyalty will be tested in ways you won't believe. Drop a comment below. Would you have refused to work on the pyramids? Or would you have kept pulling stones no matter the cost? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. And remember, history isn't just dates and facts. It's real people facing real dilemmas. People just like us, trying to make impossible choices in impossible times. See you in the next one.